2025, August 22nd through the 24th in Elmhurst, Illinois. A weekend you won't want to miss with special guests Cale Zeldin, Paul Vanderklay, Rod Dreer, Elizabeth Oldfield, John Vervaeke, and Jonathan Pajot. Midwestuary 2025, the Fellowship of the Spirit. Stay tuned for more details. Visit us at midwestuary.com for ongoing updates.
Well, good morning. What's up? What's up, everybody? How is everyone doing? If you're over on X watching, hop on over to the Hive Mind, to the chat over on YouTube. Let us know you're alive. Let us know who you are. Say hi. So we got a few people hanging out. I don't know how many people are hanging out in the chat, but let me know if you can hear, if you're out there. Somebody, make sure the audio is coming through. Yay or nay? I hope everyone's had a good day. I've been kind of out of the internet loop a little bit. Just attending to meet space. When I say meet, I mean like MEET, where you actually meet people. Not MEAT. It's a little more crass, meet space, but they both serve. Yeah, so I was wanting to see if there's anyone out there today wanting to hang out, to be virtually not alone. Yeah, so some of the things I've been going back in April, I spent almost every Sunday afternoon on Philosophy Portal with Ross Byrd, and we were discussing metagelicalism, the TLC. He went through his Parish manifesto on there, and got to spend a lot of good time with him, and that was a lot of fun. Thanks to Cadell last over on Philosophy Portal. Cadell is running his own kind of corner of the internet with, a cohort of people that kind of in this, their big influences are Peter Rollins, Zizek, Slavoj Zizek, and one of who's the psychoanalyst, Lacan. It's kind of a different vibe than kind of downstream necessarily from Peterson and Peugeot, and kind of the Christian, more explicit Christian nature and religious nature of this corner. But Cadell seemed very interested in kind of what's been going on, what's been being cultivated in this corner of the internet. And so it was a lot of fun to dialogue. It was very hospitable. So thanks for that. Yeah, dude. And then Ross Byrd has also been being talked about with his Parish manifesto and his economy of the commons. I can't remember the conversation he had with his last conversation with Jordan. It's posted on his Substack called Patient Kingdom. But Ross, Paul, and I guess I don't know if it was considered homeroom today, Paul Vanderklay posted his conversation with Ethan, Ross's conversation with Ethan, where they talked about the Parish manifesto. And Ross, it seemed like, as he's been able to do this more like through Philosophy Portal, I had a conversation with him almost a year ago about it. He's beginning to articulate it in conversation much more clearly. And I think that's evidenced by what Paul was able to pick up on it and share it this morning, his conversation with Ethan. And he breaks down, there's kind of two parts, the God of holiness and God of exclusion and inclusion, holiness, and I don't remember the other contrast, but then there's the parish made of priests, steeples, and what's the other one? Parish people. Okay, maybe it's just parish, steeples, priest, peoples. And he kind of goes through the symbolic and yet real, in a certain way, like ideal or frame for the type of Christian life that, if there ever was something close to it, has been largely discarded. And for me, it's really interesting, like my forays into this space. One of the big young men that had actually a mimetic power was Redeemed Zoomer. I talked to him on the phone like 2 or 3 years ago, when I first came in contact with his content. And because the idea of like the physical institution of the church goes along with kind of the symbolic structure that Peugeot talks about, kind of this visible church. And in the, coming out of the Jesus movement into the early 2000s, like, it's about a relationship, not a religion. And, kind of all the critiques on stuffy religion and all that kind of stuff. We get out into this dismantled and disintegrated church, where it's kind of invisible, or it's all in our heads, or all in our own personal experiences. Or now it's all on the internet. And something about the embodied nature of birth, baptized, married, buried, it's very romantic, but it's also very human in its scale. And we continue to try to press the limits of our ability to scale and do things quickly and beyond what we're probably our own biological hardware is necessarily capable of integrating that well. So, anyways, I was going to just pop on and see if people wanted to come in. I'm going to put the link out, see if there's people interested in hanging out. How do I do this? Why do I forget? Oh, this is how. Duh. Invite. Here we go. If you're out on Twitter, you want to come hang out, link is in the chat over on YouTube. So, yeah. And then, of course, what's been going on in the TLC with, we've got Midwest Estuary coming up in August. Nate on Twitter, Nate Heil from Grail Country on Twitter a few days ago, doesn't think that the TLC might not survive the woke right. And these are some things been going on. So TLC, Philosophy Portal with Ross, and then his Parish Manifesto. I don't know if there's anybody out there that's been interested in those things, wanting to have more conversation on, and just hang out. Links in the chat. Let's see. We'll let this marinate for a second with, well, do I have any? I'll share an estuary branding. The estuary protocol is simple. It was developed by Paul Vanderklay and John Van Donk as a part of their response to the meaning crisis. The protocol goes like this. First, introduce yourself. Tell about yourself, a little bit of your background and how you got here. And then it's the 3 Ps. Pitch your idea. What's been most salient to you? What's been most meaningful to you? Something that you've wanted to talk about. It could be intellectual, propositional, something about estuary. There are variations on this. Round 3 is you point. You point to the idea that you most want discussed. Generally not your own. So you point to the idea from the person that you found most compelling. And then a vote is tallied, and the idea that had the most attention and salience begins the conversation, which is round 4. Play. Point, pitch, play. Now you get to play with the idea together. You get to try to synthesize. You get to try to innovate. You get to try to empathize. You get to try to understand. It's simple, yet powerful. Something maybe like elegant. And it's changing certain parts of the world. It's changed this corner of the internet. It's changed me. And I'm glad to be a part of it. Thanks, Paul. So, I think Redeemed Zoomer has the right idea about not giving up on historic churches that are going awry. They can possibly be turned around. Ethan says, I wish I could join you. Got to take the fiance to work. Want to hear more about your time with Philosophy Portal. What did you see? What did you learn? Were you challenged? Point, pitch, pick. Point, pitch, pick, play. Oops, I missed one. Yeah, so Redeemed Zoomer not giving up on historic churches. Yeah, that there was something in that mimetically that tapped into, like, I grew up like on Main Street at First Baptist, and I remember, you drive down the road and there's First United Methodist, and there's the Episcopal Church down, and, First Baptist, and they're all like right there. And I'm in Paul's video today, he kind of talked about the village, and I kind of still live in a village-sized town. And I can see the parishes. Like, I can see where churches, like, there are certain groups of churches. So like downtown, you got Presbyterian and Methodist and First Baptist and the Episcopal Church. And then, like, if you go north, there's another United Methodist. There's a Church of Christ, which I don't know if it still is. And then there's another Baptist church, like on the thoroughfare there. And then if you go east, you have another Church of Christ. You have a Nazarene church. And if you go back into the neighborhoods a little bit, you've got First Assembly of God. You've got another Baptist church, Calvary. And then you've got a little Missionary Baptist church and another Methodist church. And you can see these little parishes. And we don't, one of Jordan Hall's recent conversations, he talked about kind of like the end of strategy. Like, and I think that, I don't know if this is exactly what he means, but like these large scale strategies that are going to fix the world or something. And I was just like, well, what happens, like, because now, like, the church that I'm in, we moved into one of these little parishes. We actually took over. We actually are renting kind of a Christian Science Society church building, which only had 4 people meeting there. And we've got like 50. And so we made like an agreement with them, but it's in kind of one of these little parish sections in town. And I was like, well, what if you just like put, you made like you just wrote a circle around that, and that was like your strategy. It was not necessarily like internet and how can we scoop up these Christians from this church to that church. For like, how could you actually like look at the parish that you are in? Because we're not on the edge of town out in like, suburbia, big land, giant parking lot type thing. This is like right embedded in a neighborhood. And so with Ross's stuff, with Redeemed Zoomer stuff, like, it really has influenced my influence in this journey, to find a historical building. Because this building is like an old colonial. It was based off of an actual church in Williamsburg, an Anglican church. They designed this church based off of an Anglican church in Williamsburg, Virginia. And so, like, it's got like a organ that was put together by somebody from like Norway. And what's up, chat? And so, like, you put a dot on the map of your church and then you just draw a circle around it. Like, what if that was the strategy? Like, the parish, the actual physical parish. And, there are things that like churches have, whatever. We all asking the question, does a church exist if it doesn't have a website and a Facebook page or an Instagram account? Like, I guess that's one of the questions I was wondering. And yeah, but these were a lot of the things actually that we did discuss in Philosophy Portal, Ross and I, but we also talked about this corner of the internet. Paul Vanderklay, Cadell gave like a really good lecture on his perspective of metagelicalism and this corner of the internet. It's locked behind a paywall. But he did an actual lecture with slides and everything on his perspective of the Peterson-Peugeot pipeline, Paul Vanderklay, this quarter of the internet, and then metagelicalism and how he sees it, how he frames it. From somebody that's like really not like in, I mean, he's very kind of like, in a sense, like what Clara, I guess, was attempting to do, but she kind of got like pulled in for a while. Yeah, there was this and then it got me thinking about like the first video I ever posted on here was about like how I see this like phenomenon of the corner being like, you know, a church plant, St. Peterson the first, basically, and then Vanderklay is basically like the parish priest, and Peugeot is like, you know, John the Baptist prophet type thing. And like then I started thinking about the parishes and the hospitality related to these, you know, we call them the flotillas, but like in a certain way, I wonder, you know, these things kind of operate, these little gatherings, these little, you know, offerings of community and connection are similar to parishes in that way, digital, and it's being, you know, overseen by like a, you know, loosely, not even really overseen, but helped, encouraged. It's being encouraged. It's being given courage by a one Paul Vanderklay. Yeah, and so, but the interesting thing about the nature of this, like, you know, Chad having a kid, and like I haven't been active really like for a month, and like it is very ephemeral, but it's also what can be done in the digital in a way that's really specific to that. So those are things going through my brain. I've got link if anyone wants to hop in. People are hanging out. I know we got people over on X hanging out. But goodness, that's a big statement. I didn't know. I guess I hadn't caught that. Creation hiatus indefinitely from Chad. I'm on creation hiatus. Yeah. Sometimes I think I feel that way. I probably have felt that way recently. And but here we are talking. I haven't really sat down to think through what I experienced on Philosophy Portal. CW Weeks has been kind of trying to get that out of me. I know I was nervous going into it. I was like, man, I don't know enough philosophy to be invited to something called Philosophy Portal to talk about something. But he mainly just wanted me to talk about my experience here with you guys. And indefinitely versus permanent. I need to know the difference between those two words, Chad. And pardon me. Yeah, Philosophy Portal. There were a lot of so the month before Ross and I, which the way it worked out was that Cadell had asked if there was somebody I wanted to do this with, and I actually mentioned Ross as the person I wanted to do this with. And the only person from my membership that took advantage of the access, my $5 access to the portal, was Luke Freeman. And I am trying to get together with Luke, and Ethan's wanting to get us together, and Ethan Cahy to try to talk about Ross's stuff, but also I guess maybe probably some of the portal stuff will bleed in there with Luke. Luke was wanting to do a follow-up on that. So that stuff will come. I'm open to it. And yeah, but I was kind of feeling like I didn't, it's like, what do I have to give? But really what he was asking again, like I said, was, you know, my experience here in the corner, and what I think this metagelical thing is. And Yeah, I do think, I mean, it's things that I've said in the past is like, ground up ecumenicism in a way. Um, a Probably not permanent. Depends on the spirit, as it should. It's interesting, that word. Uh, have your spirits been lifted? Are you down? Spirit rally, pep rally, getting your spirits lifted. Spirits are alcohol. Spirits are the true, like the true nature of a thing is that it has a spirit, like something that's living. I was listening to Paul Kingsnorth yesterday, and he was talking about how in his conversion that the spirit of, oh yeah, Evolving Soul took advantage too. I watched most of the series. Really enjoyed Rob Zan, The Edges. Yes, Evolving Soul. You probably would have liked the previous one more, because Ross and I are more like traditional Christians than those guys. But the previous month was more of like the meta, modern religion stuff, deconstructed folk. What kind of ecumenical mix of worshipers in my Episcopal church this morning? Was a kind of ecumenical mix of worshipers. Interesting, Anselman. I'm curious because you said you liked Redeem Zoomer's ideas, and earlier in the comments you said you're now going to somewhere closer to you. And I know you don't get on the screen, Anselman, but I'm interested in this evolution for you with church. If you want to engage a little bit of what's been going on, and follow up on your statement here, your ecumenical mix of worshipers in your local Episcopal church. Because I don't know if you're in England. I know you're Scottish, but I don't know if you're in Scotland. What's going on there? What are you seeing? And Evolving Soul, you liked Rob. What did you like about what Rob talked about? We can do some chat back and forth here, some dialogue from the hive mind. Helps really get the conversation going. I'm curious if Anselman has been influenced by the Redeemed Zoomer, the young man with the big ideas. Yeah, depends on the spirit. There's a spirit. I've been debating, speaking of spirits, let's see, Anselman, I was a bit of a purist and traveled miles, but now I'm back at home church. Interesting way to say that. You're back in your parish. How far away is it for you? Is it a walking distance? Is it, a 5-minute ride, or is it and how far was your other church? Yeah, with what's been going on Twitter with Peterson, like young men are, I was drowning in temptation and self-centeredness, need to turn away a bit, let the noobs fill the gap. I hear that, brother. Drowning, temptation. Yeah. It's easy to find ourselves in those. I need to act as if it will exist without me. If that spirit will live on. Yeah, that's good. Is there a life? Is it an institution enough in a certain kind of way, not in like a rigid way, but like instituting a spirit of something real that has soul? And let's see, Anselman said it was 15-minute car ride against 2 hours. Yeah, that's a lot closer. It's really, did Redeem Zoomer have an influence on that choice, or was it just the time was just getting too much for you, Anselman? And then Rob says, Rob talked about finding the activity of God on the edges, speaking to the Jews through a donkey and a non-Jew. Got it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And that was, and he was that, I think that was part of his like psychedelics conversation too, was it not, Rob? Let's see. Yeah, 15-minute car ride. I could ride a bike to my church building, and that's like really exciting. It's literally through neighborhoods, just like, so I'm excited about that. Yeah. And Rob was born on the hippie trail, and that's true. Yeah, the this idea of proximity, this idea of like as long as you take the ideas with you, what does it matter? All this, it's really Gnostic. Let's see here. Things wrong in the direction of hierarchy and talking about are talking, but I think local possibility of being more conservative coincide with Zoomer's thoughts, I think. So maybe that's what you mean by the eclectic mix within your Episcopal Church. The wrong direction in hierarchy are taking, but I think local, the wrong direction that the hierarchy themselves, that the hierarchy's taking, but I think local possibility of being more conservative coincide with the Zoomer's thoughts. Yeah, so that there are a lot more actual, like in the institutional power structures, there's more, I don't know if you want to call it liberalism or whatever, but then within the local parishes, in the local congregations, there's more conservative. What's up, Nate? Yeah, dude. We could really flesh out the intensity on Twitter. Yeah, no, we've got it's kind of a, no one wants to hop on today. I don't know, it's a bad time. Not getting enough reach. Let's see. Anselman says, good priest worship attracting people from other denominations. Do you mean like the historical worship is attracting people from other denominations, Anselman? And a good priest is a very powerful. And what makes a good priest? Anselman, you should just come on and do voice. You don't have to turn a camera on. Let's talk about this move you've made. That would be interesting. Yeah, I have touched on a little bit that. So Nate was in the comments here. I wish I was able to hop on with you with Grail Country, and he was. Let's see if I don't know if I pull up what he said on Twitter. And I made a YouTube community post about it. Let's see. I don't know if he's got the one. Maybe he was responding to Paul. I think the comment he made was responding to Paul. But this one, he says, strange to me to watch Peterson be pilloried when his behavior is most Christ-like. Jesus was crucified because people spoke the truth to all the political factions of his day. Peterson is mocked by his former allies for having the courage to do the same thing and call out naked power grasping on all sides. That Paul Vanderklay, of all people, is missing this boggles my mind. Fat Thor, my ass. That's funny. Let's see if I can find the one for where Nate responded to Paul about the TLC. I'm so old. My kids are starting to be able to navigate phones faster than me. It's worse than Fat Thor. Uh-oh. Now things are going to get spicy. I want to have actual conversation. I'm having like talk to the chat. This is no fun. Pete, Strange Theology. Peterson's worse than Fat Thor. I know you have been really poking at the change of discourse with the vibe shift that's happening. I guess what we could say on the right side of the scales. No, I did not, Pete. I've been out of the loop. Anselman tried to get on. It's not got some PC issues. Come on, people, hit up your lunch crate. I know I'm going to be excommunicated from the TLC over this, but I ain't budging. That'll be interesting. I've still got my Peterson poster up in the background, guys. Uh-oh. What does that mean? Peterson is the evil. If liberalism and Peterson's liberal, not liberal leftist, but just the spirit of liberalism, and that's the big thrust that now the woke right are anti-liberalism, I think, is part of the conversation. And I didn't really watch. I would need to go watch Pete from Strange Theology's commentary on the Douglas Murray, Joe Rogan, and is it Dave Smith conversation that's still kind of getting some traction. And I don't know. I think even part of being down is like watching this shift. It's like, oh, I'm getting old. Like, like I like old Peterson. One thing I said in Philosophy Portal, because I've known that this critique's been coming. I've got a young friend who's about 27, very influenced by what's up, Chad? Very influenced by Bronze Age pervert and that whole thing. And he was giving just he wrote a scathing Substack about Peterson. And he knows, like, he was influential on him. And even like part of my evangelism to that guy, if you want to call it that, was through meta narratives, like the secular humanist evolutionary meta narrative is, you can put that up against the Christian meta narrative. It's got its own Trinitarian structure. And I got all that kind of from Peterson. It affected this guy, but then he is kind of rejecting Peterson in the way that's being done in mass in certain circles right now. So I've been watching that take place, even in like some friendships and stuff, and just kind of been wondering. But my critique, I think I joined Nate in the critique, is that, oh man, I'm about to just blow it wide open. Wait a second. Am I being Euro trash? Oh, I see. Liberal. Okay. Are you? I don't think you're talking to me, but I'm just trying to get this out. Nate said liberalism is tradition for an American. Stop being Euro trash. And so you're saying maybe that Americans playing soccer is the root of all evil. Trying to do what, if I'm understanding what Nate's saying, it is that the politics that inspired World War II is being played out again, but we're trying to play it out now in the further West, the Americas. Liberalism, American liberalism was separate from that. And so, I mean, that's pretty interesting. I like that. But what I was thinking, I forgot where I was going, which was that Peterson being rejected by the right. Oh, it's that this idea that the cross and the symbol of the cross is another like power symbol, in the sense of like, when you looked at what the left has been doing in culture, American culture, with institutions and power, more subversively, and I guess this is the Fox and Lions conversation that Nate has also critiqued. And then what's happening on the right is another version, and I've seen it extrapolated, like I didn't come to bring peace but a sword. And then it's like, okay, so now see, Christ is talking about power. I just can't square power. Like when you actually look at the gospel and the crucifixion, I can't get to the fact that he came and like conquered. If you look at even the symbolic imagery, it was the sword was put into the ground. Like, imagine this cross as a sword put into the ground. It's an inversion of power. I don't know how to get around that. And like I've been a big I voted for Donald Trump. I'm not some liked things. I think that there needed to be a shakeup of the status quo. And if anything, I don't know if I fear, like, I don't think I have the same fears that Nate has or that he's expressing, but the ball and the cross. Well, don't just leave me. I can't just read G.K. Chesterton. Give the tweet version, Pete. You know, and that doesn't mean that we don't do hard things or even have to fight evil in a certain way. I just think that there's a way, a contradiction in terms. Yeah, there's a way that the cross is a contradiction in terms. Thank you, Pete. What say you, Chad?
I don't know. Not much. Yeah, I was like, excuse me. Part of a lot of my own stuff has to do with just kind of personal difficulties with attention and stuff like that. I was gonna pull like a whatchamacallit, a CW and leave the corner for 5 years and all that stuff, and that's what I did. So here I am. Like I knew it wouldn't be a leave permanent thing. Like I even asked my wife about it. She's like, "Well, why can't you? Can you just like moderate?" It's like, yeah, probably, but yeah, it's weird. It's weird. So there's a lot on my mind about all of this right now, and this whole. Do you remember back when the whole Trump thing happened, and we had that conversation about, or at least even way before that? Like I remember I asked the question, "Will the corner be able to survive politics?" And everybody kind of looked at me like I was nuts when I said that, and it's interesting to me, like that it does seem to merely be about politics, although everybody's like they're saying, well, no, it's about theology or whatever, but it's like I don't know, it still seems to be more rooted in the realm of politics for people. And I don't know, there's a lot going on. I don't really know what to say. I all I know is I got a lot on my mind, and I feel funky. I don't feel like I don't want to feel like uh, a YouTube creator or content creator. So like I need to take a step back from that. I got a lot of bullshit on my mind. So yeah, all this political garbage. So all so stupid.
Things change.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do.
Chad,
Who's that?
David
I was
Brewster
kind of
Hill.
in. It's
Oh.
me. It's Dave. I was kind of. I really liked the video that you posted yesterday, where like AA kind of broke off into a cult. That little
Yeah.
chestnut that you were posting about.
Yeah.
And
Cinnamon. Their
Yeah.
first name was Tender Loving Care.
Yeah, the TLC. Yeah. Um, I'm wondering about our group and about like things don't stay in one place, right?
Hmm.
Like when Peterson first came forward, he was friends with Sam Harris, right? And I wonder about at what level this little grouping of people is going to have, like, everyone talks about, like, oh, what a big moment when people who met here got married, but what about the big moment when people who met here formed a cult? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
as a possible thing that occurs here.
Yeah. The arrogance of we thinking that it's not possible is why I posted that, because it's a really, really delicate situation. Do you think those people, the founders included, thought they were starting a cult? I don't think they did. And it's tricky. I think people are tricky, and we just have to be really cognizant of that sort of stuff. I think that's why I put it out there, just in hopes that we say, no, we wouldn't do that. We're not, we're above that. It's like, I don't know. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Have you met people? Um, so that's why I did it. That's why I posted that video. And if it's offensive and you think that it wouldn't happen to you, then, well, sorry, but probably would. We're already in some sort of a locked in, like, politics as like the highest frame, even though you know uh, we feign that theology is the highest frame. It's not true. Not around here. It isn't.
Hmm. Interesting.
The corner was born out of politics.
Like with Peterson,
Yes.
C16.
Yep.
I mean, I would challenge that it was kind of multiple things related to that.
Yep.
With
Politics is one of them.
I didn't say it wasn't. I'm
I
just
know.
saying.
That's all I'm saying is it. I'm not saying it was born merely out of politics, but it was definitely part of its. It's in its chromosome.
Yeah,
Sorry.
definitely. Oh, I definitely. I'm just saying that, like, I think that the psychological lecture, the biblical lectures, like, were coinciding with, and they coincided with all of that.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't like just
But
completely
okay,
map on politics to that.
I agree, Christian, but the reason why those were popular is because they weren't from a religious perspective, right? The whole point is that um, people were engaging on a different level, and we can talk about the spiritual being the highest level, but exactly what made it popular was all these different levels. In fact, what's it called? Briley Unheard just posted a conversation with Pajot, and Pajot is phrases there that in his conversation with Jordan when they first met, um, there's a conflict between the two visions of what Peterson would do. Pajot says, "I think you're going to bring back Christianity," and Peterson says, I'm just wanting people to know the symbolic importance of the biblical stories." So it's like, and Pajot spells it out almost as though those are conflicts, and that Peterson gets uh, eaten by the religious, right? But that his intention is actually lower, I think.
That's very interesting. So politics is like almost like a symbolic. Is this politics is like a symbolic representation of religion. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
That's
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 what I kind of
interesting.
think. Because how does he become popular? He doesn't become popular from conversations with Christians. He becomes popular through pushing on political things, and only through there does he get to anything religious.
Yeah.
Versus the people who are like religious and use that to get at political ideas.
Yeah. And you know what happened? It kind of gets funky, like with that documentary that I pointed out yesterday, as well as with, I think medicine, psychology, and stuff. Is once you start to pull these kinds of principles out of their traditional garments and just kind of wave them around like they're good principles to have, which they are. But if they're not covered in the traditional garments, they go wild. And
I agree, Chad. That's what I would just say about politics, because every church has polity. Every church has a political structure. It's not that church necessarily like what came first. I think and even to take it to the evolutionary lens of like, what is it? Hierarchies as old as the trees or something like that, and lobsters and all that. But it's like, that's also what we're talking about. And what is that? Is that human? Is that spirit? Is that creation? Is that truth? And I think that and then they develop in these traditions in ways that have probably been more, I would just say more human in scope and scale. And now it's like the scale of machine, where, and so I think something like cults, in a sense, with heretics and moving on and different, like, sometimes are just the attempt to stay at the human scale. I'm not thinking that, maybe subconsciously, obviously they're being driven by ideology, but I think that there's also a propensity of wanting to keep things like relationally managed, or, something that can be managed relationally, that's not abstracted to, has to be managed by a program.
Well, it happens like, one breath at a time. It's not, I don't think it's like some guy wakes up and says, "Oh, today I'm going to start a cult." It's like, no, it happens years upon years. It happens like one resentment, one breath at a time, one idea at a time. And so it gets like, even like you were on here, right? And I'm like, I'm trying to abstain poorly, as you can see. I'm already giving back a couple inches at a time by letting more and more of my videos be seen, because I can't stay away. Now this might be a me problem, which it probably definitely is. But like, you're on here and you're like, "Oh, nobody's coming on," and I feel like this itch, like, nobody's coming on. I should go in there. And that's how I've made it about me. And I think that's the good intention, that people have. And it's fine. It just gets, I don't know. Am I making any sense here? Probably.
No, I understand that completely with different things going on in my life, that it's like you want to get on to help, but it's like it kind of goes against something maybe that you're feeling or trying to deal with, because you're trying to maybe put up a boundary in a certain way. But
yeah, I had a bit of I was going through a real dark spot that I just kind of started to talk about publicly. Like, really, it was getting pretty bad, dude. And like, I don't think I would have done anything about it, but it was just so damn loud.
Yeah.
In my head. And like, I don't think I would have taken any negative action or whatever. I would have just done nothing. But I was at this men's retreat, which was guys in my AA lineage sponsorship line. Every year we do a retreat, and I went there. And I went there just thinking, yeah, I'm gonna go there. Like, I had this in my head, like, this is never gonna go away. I went there Friday, and I'm like just seething, like, with this nasty depression, like suicidal ideation, just sitting there the whole time. Like, and then one guy came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, do you want to come pray with me before we go on this panel and talk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's go pray." So we go out back and we go talk and we start talking. And he tells me, and this is the guy I kind of looked up to. He's everybody likes to hear him share. Everybody likes him. And he says, I've been terrified of doing this sort of thing, talking in public for a couple of years now, and I've turned down all these different engagements to do it. And I don't know, man. I just needed to talk to somebody about it. And as he's telling me this, I got something going on inside of me that I won't share here. But I have something going on inside of me that I'm thinking the whole time as he's sharing, I'm thinking, you got to tell him what's going on. Tell him what's going on. And I just told him, and dang, all of the suicidal ideation evaporated. It just went away.
It's confession.
Yeah.
That's the spiritual act of confession, and it is healing. You confess the truth. I mean,
Yeah. Yes. It was really good. I needed that. But I also was like really terrified of, I don't want to, I don't want to revert back. So that's why I need to kind of take a step back.
yep.
But because I mean, and I know I can't be the only person around here that feels this way.
Dude,
can't.
I said I'll make Mo stream the other day. The reason I haven't been around is because I've been depressed.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had some dealing with some shame, dealing with some heavy stuff. Yeah, dude.
I don't even like calling it depression. That's how bad this is. Like I was feeling like even calling it depression is part of the problem.
Sure.
Which that's just a me thing. So, but I don't know. I was just thinking about that. How
Your spirit,
even that,
your
yeah.
spirit was low and dark.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, my wife was like saying, when you're ready, you should probably go talk to somebody, maybe get medicated. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, I feel that. Feel the confession, honesty, trust, truth. I mean, I just got out of therapy this morning, right before I got on here. It's not the answer for everyone and whatnot, but it's been a long part of my process. And the one thing I was wanting to say to you is, and I come from feeling like I've also dealt heavily with addiction, is aren't you supposed to be happy because you had your first kid, Chad?
I am happy. See, that's the thing.
Yeah, I hope you didn't hear me say that in a
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But people would say that because like if I talked about how low I was, some people in like some of my morning shoes and stuff,
Yep.
try to help me with some remedies and stuff. It's like, no, you're not getting it. Like, I am happy. I am. I guess I have joy in my heart, but like, and I even talked to my father-in-law about it, and he said to me that he felt like I was missing the point that God was a loving God. And this is no, I know that God's a loving God. I have no, like, there's no question about that to me. I
Yeah.
just can't shake this darkness.
Yep. And I would venture to say, and Neil kind of brought this up, Neil Daedalus, on the stream I was on with him and Mo a little bit, but like, a part of you has to die when you have a kid.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to grieve that. And, and again, it's not like something better or can take its place, but there's also, like, I think a reality of, especially for people that are self-centered, I'm not self-centered, Chad, but you're self-centered. For people that are self-centered, that when these things come and like they intrude upon your ability to do what you want to do, that dying is, it's, I just don't want to pretend like I never felt like even marriage or, or having kids sometimes, got in the way of what I wanted to do, So, I mean, and I'm not saying that like, but,
I've never felt so seen. I love you, man. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad to know that I'm not the only self-centered prick here. God, like I need to. I think sometimes I wonder how much we lack that telling that honesty to somebody else. Is like that was one of the things about being Christian that I was afraid of, or being religious was like that aspect of me would go away because I'd be too afraid to share the kind of man I am. Like what? So thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Yeah, dude. You're talking to one of the most self-centered sons of bitches on the corner right now, man. Yeah, dude. And I mean, that's probably why we were both depressed. I mean, like, it's
true.
It's just the way it is. I mean, you don't get on and show your face on the internet if you don't have issues at some level with this stuff. And so, I mean, you're in denial if you're if being on here is only altruistic, only. I mean, I think that I'm not saying that there's not like, that I don't. I mean, hell, I may have even helped you today, like, and that's good.
Yeah.
I want that, and been a good digital friend.
Well, in AA, it says we work on our solution on the spiritual as well as the altruistic. And I wondered for a long time why they said that. And they came to the conclusion that you have to have both if you're going to do something like that. Because if you just are trying to be altruistic, you'll take the credit for it. And if it's rooted in the spiritual, then you can't take the credit for it.
Yeah. Now you sound like a good Calvinist.
I probably am. I think I was born alcoholic. So.
Yeah. The thing is, what's crazy though is like all this stuff, like even that experience you had at that retreat and being down, like all of this can actually be like the cool thing about the religion and the Christianity story is that it can all be redeemed, or it can all be like transmuted, or somehow, and it's not something that I like to talk about when things are like really shitty, but like, a kid dies, or, your wife dies, something happens like that. Like, but it is crazy that this stuff can actually be used. And that's even what we want. We want meaning from our suffering. I mean, that's like also deeply human. And, and I think like there's also these seasons, like with the Peterson stuff, to kind of bring it back around to that. It's so interesting for this, like these like 7 or 8 year cycles to like play out like this, and to be on like the shift, the vibe shift, because there was no vibe shift like the 2016 vibe shift until the 2025 vibe shift. You know what I mean? Like, and except this one doesn't, it seems as like a little more ambiguous, but you kind of feel like it is. And maybe this is what it felt like before the 2016 vibe, like stuff that happened. But
that's why I pointed out. I think that's what I saw back when the political stuff started kicking up. I was like, oh no. The corner is going to be consumed by this stuff.
It's funny though, because I felt like that when I first got on, because I was kind of looking for an escape from like my political intensities of 2020. So when I came on the corner, I was kind of looking for a place that wasn't so like explicit but I also needed a way to like figure out how to reapproach politics in a way that was more helpful. And I feel like the corner was helpful to me in that, like when I did the Trump got shot stream,
Yeah.
that was like an attempt for me to like reprogram or recode or reintegrate how I'm going to like approach certain things in politics and do that, you know, quote unquote, kind of publicly, whatever this is.
And I was a jackass on that one too. But part of it is just some of the same concerns, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I just gotta stop being the internet police. You know?
sure.
Who cares?
I think that the way I look at Peterson, and this is how it's going to kind of be for me, is I think I'm going to keep this poster up even as he becomes less popular. And it's not because I don't think like I might even have critiques on certain things he might say now or want him to be, you know, you got to get with the program, Peterson, blah, 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 all that shit.
Yeah.
We're more willing to like, you know, the whole boomer, okay boomer meme. It's really, really destructive because we don't honor people for like the good things they did do or something. We're just like, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
you
What have
have
you done for me lately?
Yeah. And so for me, like Peterson, he is an elder to me, and I'll continue to honor that in the way that I can, not because I think he's perfect or he's going to make all the right moves on, you know, navigating, or that he's the man anymore when it comes to like, you know, owning the libs and what all the bullshit. And it's like, it just really has to, yeah. The echo is probably coming from Chad's.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. I'll see if I can probably.
I'm probably gonna hop off pretty quick, but I just want to say this one last thing. That Peterson, like, I think what, first of all, what Vanderklay does is he posts questions. Doesn't mean it's his opinion. He's not calling him Fat Thor. He's asking the question. That's so. First of all, pay attention to the way that the question is formed. Secondly, like in my comment that I made in that video, it still stands true. I would not be married today if it wasn't for Peterson. I wouldn't be in a church. I wouldn't be Christian. None of that stuff. And that's all because, especially the marriage thing, it was in one of the biblical series lectures where he brought up marriage and he talked about the candle ceremony. He talked about chaining yourself to somebody. He said the marriage isn't about you and it's not about your wife. It's about you and your wife under God. And when I heard that, I don't know why it took Peterson to get it through, but marriage went from a piece of paper to something sacred. You know, and I asked my wife to marry me not long after that.
Marriage went from a piece of paper to sacred. Yeah. And that's like, even with all of this conversation. Yeah. Even with all this conversation of politics, and thanks, Chad. Even with all this conversation, is that like nothing's sacred. Peterson being an elder, like screw the last 8 years of his positive impact. He doesn't fit my narrative anymore. Toss him out. That kind of like, just, you know, for the clicks or for the posturing, for the, you know, maybe this own version of virtue signaling, your own version of virtue signaling. And yeah, I'm just like kind of, you know, whatever. We'll see what happens. Just like Anselman, I'll go to church. I'm going to end it. Everyone have a great day.
Midwestuary 2025, August 22nd through the 24th in Elmhurst, Illinois. A weekend you won't want to miss, with special guests Cales Eldon, Paul Vanderklay, Rod Dreer, Elizabeth Oldfield, John Vervaeke and Jonathan Peugeot. Midwestuary 2025, the Fellowship of the Spirit. Stay tuned for more details. Visit us at midwestuary.com for ongoing updates.
Hi, this is Christian Baxter, and you're listening to Yours Truly, a place we go to think out loud.